ever get that text, the I miss you and kind of freeze up? Like, what do you even say to that?
Oh, totally. It's such a simple phrase, but it can feel so loaded. Like, what are they really trying to say?
Right. So how do we navigate that? That's what we're diving into today, that article you sent, how to respond to I miss you.
It's a good thing we have a guide because there are a lot of ways to respond.
Apparently.
10, to be exact, according to this.
10. Wow. Okay. I mean, options are good, but how do we pick the right one? And what does right even mean when it comes to something like this?
You hit the nail on the head. That's the million-dollar question. And it's tricky because it's not just about the words themselves, but the whole context.
Yeah.
What's the intention behind the I miss you?
Okay, so how do we figure that out?
Yeah.
Like decode the message.
Exactly. Think about it this way. A friend saying I miss you after a fun weekend is totally different from, say, hearing it from your partner after being apart for weeks.
It's like there are different dialects of I miss you. Haha.
That's a great way to put it. And like any language, understanding the nuances is key. Speaking of nuances, this article suggests responding with, let's make plans soon. What do you think about that one?
Interesting. I do like that it's action-oriented. It's not just words. It's showing you want to actually do something about the missing.
Exactly. It shows you're taking it seriously, not just giving a knee-jerk miss you too back. And there's actually a psychological principle behind why that's so effective. It's called the consistency bias, basically. We tend to believe people more when their actions match their words.
So when you follow I miss you with a plan, it feels more genuine.
Precisely. But, and this is a big but, it can backfire if you're not careful.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about it. If someone hears, let's make plans, but those plans never materialize, it can start to feel empty, like you didn't really mean
Oh,
it.
that makes sense.
Oh.
It can erode the trust, make the initial I miss you meaningless.
Mhm.
Ouch.
Exactly. It's like that saying, actions speak louder than words.
So true. Okay, so honesty and follow-through are key with that response. What about a softer approach? The article also mentions, I've been thinking about you too.
Oh, that's a good one. That response goes beyond just reciprocating the miss you. It implies a deeper level of engagement, like the other person has been on your mind in a meaningful way.
It's almost like saying, you're not just someone I miss when I'm feeling lonely. I actually think about you even when we're not together.
Yes. And it taps into something so fundamental, our need to feel seen and valued. When someone tells us they've been thinking about us, it validates our importance to them.
That's so true. And that actually reminds me of something else the article brought up. It's not just about being honest with the other person. It's also about being honest with yourself about how you feel.
Absolutely. Because we all communicate differently, right? Some people are more expressive, others more reserved, and that's okay.
There's no right or wrong way to be, as long as you're being true to yourself.
Exactly. So if someone sends a heartfelt, I miss you, and your gut instinct is to deflect or downplay it, that's valuable information. It could be a sign to examine why you're hesitant to engage with those feelings.
So self-awareness is a big part of this. Now, what about when things get really tricky? Like, what if you don't actually miss the person who's saying it?
Ooh, yeah, the dreaded unrequited, I miss you. Definitely a delicate situation. You want to be kind, but also not lead them on.
Right. The article suggests saying, thank you for saying that. I hope you're doing well. But that feels kind of distant.
It can come across as a bit impersonal, like you're trying to create distance instead of acknowledging their feelings. A more genuine approach might be something like, it means a lot that you're thinking of me, and I value our connection. What do you think?
Yeah, that feels warmer, more human. You're validating their feelings without making promises you can't keep.
Exactly. And in some cases, it might even be necessary to set boundaries.
Boundaries, now that's a whole other deep dive waiting to happen. But what would that look like in this context?
Well, imagine it's an ex and their I miss you texts are getting more frequent even though you've both moved on. It might be time for something like, I appreciate you reaching out, but I'm focusing on moving forward and I need some space.
That's direct, honest, and avoids giving them false hope. Now, the article also tackles another tricky scenario, the it's complicated situation. How do you navigate that minefield?
Oh, those are tough because there's often so much history, so many unspoken things. It can be a real minefield, like you said. The article gives an example, I miss you too, but things are a bit complicated right now, which, while honest, might leave the other person even more confused.
Yeah, it's like saying, I have feelings, but I'm not going to elaborate on what those are.
Yeah.
Not very helpful.
Right. So in those situations, clarity is key. If it's an ex, you might say, I miss aspects of our relationship too, but I'm in a different place now. If it's a friend where maybe romantic feelings have popped up, you could acknowledge that shift. Something like, our relationship has changed and I'm still figuring out how I feel.
So even though I miss you seems so straightforward, there's actually a surprising amount of strategy involved in responding authentically.
It is. It's like we're all playing this game of emotional chess. Every interaction, every response is a move.
I love that analogy.
Mm.
And like any game, the more you understand the rules, the better you'll be at playing.
And just like in chess, sometimes the best move is knowing when to avoid certain phrases. Even saying, I miss you, even if you mean well, it can accidentally, reopen old wounds or make someone think you're promising more than you can give.
All right, it can be like adding fuel to a fire. So what's the alternative, especially in those messy situations? How do you show you care without actually using those words?
It's about shifting the focus. Instead of dwelling on the missing part, focus on what that connection meant, even if things have changed. You could try something like, I've been thinking about you and all the good times we had, or you've played such an important part in my life and I'm grateful for that.
I like that. It feels sincere and respectful. You're acknowledging the past without getting stuck there. It's like you're saying, I see you, I value you, and I'm honoring what we had.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes that's the most genuine and helpful thing you can say.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. We started off feeling like, I miss you was this big mystery, but now we have a whole toolkit for navigating these conversations.
It really is amazing how much meaning is packed into just 3 little words, right? I miss you can be about so much more than just missing someone. It can open the door to conversations about needs, boundaries, and how relationships change.
Totally. It reminds us that communication goes beyond just words. It's about hearing the unspoken things, reading between the lines and responding authentically while still being mindful of the other person's feelings.
And sometimes that takes practice, patience, and being okay with a little discomfort.
So true. Listeners, next time you get that I miss you text, remember, take a breath, think about how you feel, and consider what they might really be trying to say. Choose a response that feels true to you, knowing that even the most complicated I miss you situations can be handled with grace and empathy. It really makes you realize that I miss you is rarely just about missing someone, huh?
Right. It's often a starting point for these deeper conversations about what we need, where the lines are, how relationships evolve. It's a lot more than just 3 little words.
Absolutely. It reminds us that communication is about way more than just the words themselves. It's about trying to understand those unspoken things, like you said, reading between the lines, and then responding in a way that feels true for you, but also considers the other person's feelings.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. And sometimes that takes practice, being patient with yourself and the other person, and maybe even being a little uncomfortable.
So well said. And, on that note, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Definitely.
We dove deep into I miss you, explored all the angles, all the different meanings, from the straightforward to the super complicated.
It really is like a whole emotional obstacle course sometimes.
It is. But hopefully now our listeners have some new tools to navigate those conversations. So to wrap things up, next time you get that I miss you text, don't panic. Take a breath. Think about how you feel and what they might be trying to tell you. And then choose a response that feels genuine to you, knowing that even the trickiest situations can be handled with a little empathy.